They finally did it. A new law just passed that forces police to walk into your home and confiscate your firearms. No warrant, no hearing, no due process. This isn't a proposal anymore. It's happening right now. And every gun owner in America needs to know about this before it spreads to your state. If you value your Second Amendment rights, hit that subscribe button immediately, because this channel is one of the few places telling you the truth that mainstream media won't touch. The mandatory confiscation framework. Here's what actually happened that nobody's talking about. This law doesn't just allow officers to take your guns during a domestic call. It creates a mandatory seizure protocol that strips away all officer discretion. When police arrive at any household dispute, regardless of severity, they must identify all firearms present and remove them immediately. The law uses the phrase "shall seize," not "may seize," which in legal terminology means there's zero wiggle room. What makes this particularly dangerous is the automatic trigger system they built in. According to the statute, if any person at the scene expresses fear, or if an officer determines that weapons could pose a risk, confiscation becomes mandatory. There's no threshold for what constitutes fear. It's entirely subjective. A 2023 study from the Police Executive Research Forum found that officer judgment calls vary by up to 73% in identical scenarios, depending on individual training and personal bias. That means your constitutional rights now depend on which officer shows up to your door and how they personally interpret a vague emotional state. The enforcement mechanism is even more troubling. Officers who fail to confiscate firearms face departmental discipline and potential legal liability if any subsequent incident occurs. This creates a perverse incentive where police are pressured to seize first and sort out rights later. Departments are now training officers to default to confiscation in any ambiguous situation to protect themselves from lawsuits. What you're about to hear next makes this even worse, because the confiscation is just the beginning of your nightmare. The retrieval trap and bureaucratic hell. Getting your firearms back after seizure isn't a simple process. It's a deliberately designed obstacle course that most gun owners will never successfully navigate. The law establishes a minimum 5-day hold period. But here's what they're not advertising. That's only the starting point. After 5 days, you must file a formal petition with the court, appear before a judge, and prove you're not a threat. Court filing fees alone average $400 to $600. And if you want legal representation, which you absolutely need because one wrong statement can extend your seizure indefinitely, you're looking at $2,500 to $5,000 in attorney fees minimum. A 2024 analysis by the Firearms Policy Coalition found that 68% of people who had guns seized under similar temporary confiscation laws never got them back, not because they were guilty of anything, but because they couldn't afford the legal battle or didn't understand the complex filing requirements. The system gets worse. While your guns are in police custody, you're responsible for any storage fees the department charges. Some jurisdictions charge $50 per firearm per month for secure storage. If you own multiple guns and it takes 3 months to get a hearing, you could be paying hundreds of dollars in fees just to store your own property that was taken without a warrant. The department can also claim firearms were lost or damaged during storage, and you have almost no recourse for compensation. But what happens during that confiscation period is where the real danger lies, and most people never see it coming. The expanded targeting beyond domestic calls. This law doesn't stop at traditional domestic violence situations. The language is deliberately broad enough to encompass almost any household interaction with police. The statute defines domestic incident to include disputes between roommates, adult children living with parents, elderly parents living with adult children, and even persons who have or have had an intimate relationship. That last phrase is completely undefined and left to officer interpretation. Mental health calls represent another massive expansion of confiscation authority. If anyone in a household is experiencing a mental health crisis and police respond, all firearms in that residence can be seized, even if they belong to someone else who's completely uninvolved. A University of Michigan study from 2024 tracked 1,200 mental health calls where firearms were present and found that in 82% of cases, guns were confiscated from family members who had no connection to the mental health episode and posed no risk whatsoever. Welfare checks have become confiscation opportunities. If a concerned neighbor calls for a wellness check because they haven't seen you in a few days, and officers decide to enter your home, they can seize firearms based solely on the presence of concerning conditions. What are concerning conditions? The law doesn't specify. Messy house, medication bottles visible, looking tired or disheveled, all potential triggers for confiscation. Officers are being trained to treat welfare checks as risk assessment opportunities, and internal training documents from multiple departments explicitly instruct officers to look for firearms during these calls. The people this actually impacts might shock you, because it's not who you think. The data on who really gets targeted, the demographics of who faces gun confiscation under these laws, reveals a disturbing pattern that nobody in government wants to discuss. Analysis of confiscation records from states with similar mandatory seizure laws shows that rural gun owners face confiscation at rates 340% higher than urban residents, despite urban areas having significantly higher rates of domestic violence calls. The reason is simple. Rural homes typically contain more firearms, making them higher value targets for bulk confiscation. And rural residents have less access to immediate legal representation to fight back. Military veterans represent another disproportionately targeted group. Data from 2024 shows veterans are 5.7 times more likely to have firearms confiscated during domestic or mental health calls compared to non-veterans. The moment dispatch notes someone at the address is a veteran, response protocols change. Officers receive alerts about potential weapons training and combat experience, which triggers heightened confiscation procedures. PTSD-related calls, even minor ones, almost universally result in firearm seizure. Elderly gun owners face a particularly insidious form of confiscation through Adult Protective Services involvement. When APS investigates seniors for potential self-neglect or vulnerability, their protocols now include firearm removal for safety. A 75-year-old widower whose house is cluttered or who forgets to pay a utility bill on time can trigger an APS investigation that results in permanent gun confiscation under the guise of protective services. The permanent record and lifetime consequences. Every firearm confiscation creates a permanent law enforcement record that follows you forever, even if you did nothing wrong and eventually got your guns back. These seizure records get entered into state and federal databases that are checked during every subsequent background check for firearm purchases, carry permit applications, and even certain employment screenings. A 2024 investigation revealed that 23 states automatically flag individuals in background check systems if they've ever had firearms seized, regardless of whether charges were filed or the seizure was later deemed unjustified. The career implications are devastating and rarely discussed. Federal employment, law enforcement positions, security clearances, and many private sector jobs involving security or finance now automatically disqualify applicants who have any record of firearm seizure in their history. You don't need to be convicted of anything. The mere existence of a confiscation record is enough. The FBI's background investigation protocols obtained through FOIA requests show that any firearm seizure, even temporary ones, trigger mandatory character and judgment reviews that disqualify candidates for federal positions. This confiscation scheme is spreading to more states right now while you're watching this video, and your state could be next on the list. If you care about keeping your firearms and your constitutional rights, you need to subscribe to this channel immediately and hit that notification bell so you're warned the second new confiscation laws get proposed. Share this video with every gun owner you know before it's too late.